Hello, this is Mrs. Ward, and I am going to explain the worksheet on difference quotients, and we'll just go through the problem step by step, and hopefully it'll answer some of the questions you may still have. So remember, when we're doing difference quotients, we're using this formula, which represents the equation to find the slope of a secant line. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first start by substituting in for this x. We're going to substitute in x plus h. So I'm going to have 2 times the quantity of x plus h plus 3. That is going to be the f of x plus h. And then for f of x, I am just going to copy down the equation as it is. I am going to put it in parentheses so I remember to distribute the negative sign. And then I'm going to put this all over h. And I put step 1, 2, and 3 all together. Or I put all the steps together. It's just, for me, it's just easier to do that way. So I am going to distribute my 2, and I'm going to have 2x plus 2h plus 3. Distributing this negative sign will be negative 2x minus 3, and then this is all still over h. The 2 x's will simplify, the 3 and the negative 3 will simplify, and I'm left with 2h over h, and then the h's will simplify, and my final answer is 2. Remember, it's about the process, not necessarily just getting the answer. So number 2, I have negative 2x squared plus 5, so I'm going to start it off the same way. This, I'm just, first in blue, I'm going to do the x plus h, so this will be a negative 2. In place of x, I'm going to write x plus h squared plus 5. That's the f of x, and I didn't copy it for each slide. And that's my formula, so then I am going to do minus, and then this will be negative 2x squared plus 5. Always put this in parentheses so you remember the distribute negative sign. And this is all over h. So just a refresher on this, x plus h squared is going to be the same thing as x plus h times x plus h. So you will get x squared and then plus xh plus xh plus h times h, which would be h squared. So you're going to get x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. So I'm not going to do that every time. That's a rule that you learned in Algebra 1. So I'm just going to put this in for here. So there's a negative 2 that's still outside. And then it's going to be x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Close that parenthesis. There's that plus 5. Now I'm going to distribute the negative sign, and I'm going to have a plus 2x squared minus 5, and this is all over h. And if you want to bring that h down, like forget about it and bring it down at the end, that's fine. Distributing the negative 2, I'm going to have negative 2x squared minus 4xh minus 2h squared plus 5. Then this is my plus 2x squared minus 5, and this is all over h. The 2x and the negative 2x will equal 0, the negative 5 and the 5 will equal 0. Remember, everything behind that minus sign should simplify, and everything you have left should have an h in here. So I'm going to factor on an h while I'm here. So I'm going to have h, and then this will be negative 4x minus 2h all over h. Now the h's will simplify, and the h's should always be able to simplify. And I'm going to be left with negative 4x minus 2h, and that's my final answer. Okay, the next one, same formula that we've been using, f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So I'm going to just first put x plus h here, so I'm going to have 5 times the quantity of x plus h squared plus 4 minus f of x, so minus, just copy this down, 5x squared plus 4, putting it in parentheses so I remember to distribute my negative sign, and this is all over h. This, remember, we just said was, and it's going to be the same each time, is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, and then there's that plus 4. Distributing my negative sign, this will be minus 5x squared minus 4, and this is all over h. Distributing my 5, I'm going to have 5x squared plus 10xh plus 5h squared plus 4. minus 5x squared minus 4 all over h. The negative 5x squared and positive 5x squared will equal 0. The negative 4 and the positive 4 will equal 0. These both have an h. I'm going to factor that out and make it h times the quantity of 10x plus 5h. This is all over h. The h's simplify. My final answer is 10x plus 5h. So up until this point, we've only had to substitute that x plus h in once. The next one, we have x in two places, so I'm going to have to substitute that x plus h in twice. So again, here's the formula for the slope of the secant line. So when I go to do this, I'm going to have negative 3, and then this will be x plus h squared, plus 2 in place of that x plus h, minus 3. Now I'm going to subtract the original equation. So I'm putting that original equation in parentheses to remember to correctly distribute that negative sign, and all over h. This x plus h squared is going to be x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Distributing this 2, so this will be plus 2x plus 2h minus 3. Distributing the negative sign, this will be plus 3x squared minus 2x plus 3. So every sign in here changes. And this is all over h. Distributing my negative sign, or I'm sorry, my negative 3. This will be negative 3x squared minus 6xh minus 3h squared. Copying everything else down as quickly as I can. All over h. Then I kind of start here. So here's 3x squared. I look for a negative 3x squared. Negative 2x, positive 2x. Positive 3, negative 3. Remember, everything in my case orange should simplify. What I'm left with has an h, has an h, has an h. Factoring out that h. So I'm at h times the quantity of negative 6x minus 3h plus 2. So I factored out the h, and that makes it so I can simplify the h. Remember, you can't simplify until it's a factor. You cannot simplify terms. So my final answer is negative 6x minus 3h plus 2. And that's my final answer. Okay, let's do another one like that. So in place of the x, I'm going to write x plus h squared plus 4 times x plus h minus 5. That's just substituting in the x plus h. The biggest mistake on that is people always forget the constant. Don't forget the constant. Now I'm going to have minus, copying this down. And this is all over h. I wonder if I can skip a step. Probably not. Let's not do that. X squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Distributing the 4. Oopsie, that's a minus 5. And now distributing that negative sign. And this is all over h. Now I'm going to have to distribute that 5. Copying everything else down the same. So negative 5x, positive 5x squared, negative 4x, positive 4x, positive 5, negative 5. Again, everything in orange or everything of that f of x should simplify. Everything here has an h left, so I'm going to factor out the h when I rewrite it. So I'm going to have h here. This will be 10x plus 5h, because it's h squared, so you can only factor out one of those h's, plus 4. This is all over h. The h's simplify, and I'm left with 10x plus 5h plus 4. And that's my final answer. That's a really bad 5. But okay, and the last two were slightly tricky because you have a fraction, and some people don't like fractions. I don't understand that logic, but here we go. Doing the same thing. In place of this, I'm going to put an x plus h. So I'm going to have 2 over x plus h plus 4. Then I'm going to subtract the original equation, so minus, this whole thing will go in a parenthesis, and this is all over h. Well, in this case, you might want to drop the all over h until the very end. I'm just going to keep on writing it. When I go to do something like this, I'm subtracting two fractions. In order to subtract two fractions, I have to have a common denominator. So the easiest way for me to have this common denominator is I am going to multiply this fraction, the first fraction, by whatever this denominator is. So I'm going to multiply it by x plus 4 over x plus 4. These two parentheses, I'm not going to actually FOIL out. I'm just going to leave them times each other in the denominator. I'm never going to actually factor them out. So now the second fraction, I'm going to multiply by the blue denominator. So x plus h plus 4 over x plus h plus 4. Now I'm going to go vertically, or actually horizontally. So when I do this, when I multiply these two, I'm going to have 2 times x plus 4. Let's just write that as 2 times x plus 4. And then this, I'm going to have this negative sign. I'm going to think of this as negative 2. So I'm going to have minus 2 times x plus h plus 4. And that's all over this x plus 4 times this x plus h plus 4. And this whole thing is over h. So it's like a compound fraction. It's a fraction within a fraction. So going down here, when I distribute this 2, I'm going to have 2x plus 8 minus, and now I'm going to distribute this negative 2, minus 2x minus 2h minus 8 all over my denominator, which is x plus 4 times x plus h plus 4. And then this h, I'm going to think of h as h over 1. And at this point, I'm going to decide to multiply by the reciprocal, so 1 over h. Here, the negative 2x and positive 2x will equal 0. The 8 and the negative 8 will equal 0. So you're still going to have your original simplify. Everything that's left has an h in it, so I'm going to have negative 2h over x plus 4 times x plus h plus 4. And when I multiply that by the 1 over h, the h's will simplify. And my final answer is going to be negative 2 over the quantity of x plus 4 times the quantity of x plus, and that's an h, that's a really bad h, plus h plus 4. And I'm going to leave it like that, and that's my final answer. Okay, so we have one more to go. Okay, and our last problem is exactly like this problem that we just did. So I am going to put x plus h in at first. So I'm going to have 1 over x plus h plus 5, and you can start with that within parentheses if you want, minus the function, which is 1 over x plus 5, and this whole thing is over h. And you can leave it over h, or you can multiply by 1 over h. Whatever you do that makes you happy, that's what you can do. So here, when I go, remember, in order to add these, I have to have a common denominator. So before I do that, I'm going to rewrite this as 1 over x plus h plus 5 minus 1 over x plus 5, and then this whole thing, I'm just going to leave it over h. So remember, I'm going to multiply the first fraction by this denominator. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 5 over x plus 5. I'm going to multiply the second fraction by x plus h plus 5 over x plus h plus 5. So you're multiplying both the numerator and denominator by the same thing, so you're not changing the fraction, you're just coming up with that common denominator. So this, when I multiply this, I'm going to have x plus h. And then this one I have to be careful because this is really minus. And then I'll do this in parentheses, x plus h plus 5. And then over my denominator, which I'll just, is x plus 5 times x plus h plus 5. Doesn't matter the order that they write, it doesn't. And this is all over h. So I'm going to have x plus 5 minus x minus h minus 5. And this is all over my denominator, which is x plus 5, x plus h plus 5. Now, some people at this point want to like start crossing things off. Don't do that. You just work so hard to get that common denominator. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. So here I'm going to have x's will equal 0, 5's will equal 0, and I'm left with this negative h over x plus 8, 5 over x plus h plus 5, and I'm going to think of this h as 1 over h. Here the h's will simplify, and when the h's simplify, I'm left with a 1 here. So I'm going to write negative 1 over x plus 5 times the quantity of x plus h plus 5. And that's the way I'm going to leave it, and I'm done. So if you have any questions, email us, and I hope this video helps. Take care.